Galnet News Digest, 15th of September 3306. We read the news so you don't have to. In our roundup of this week's news, she could have been Emperor. It wasn't Thargoids, say Imperial spooks. Brewing up some upgrades. Who murdered Jasmina Halsey? Malic explains orbiting SRV. She could have been Emperor. Following the death of her father at the hands of terrorists yesterday, Princess Aisling Duval is left bereft, in the knowledge that had it not been for her father's dissolute lifestyle, she would now be the Emperor. Aisling's grandfather, Hengist Duval, disowned Harold in late 3300, declaring him to be not of sound mind and unfit to rule. It seems that drink, gambling, and frequent visits to brothels were the real cause of Hengist's dissatisfaction, plus, quite possibly, his renewed interest in his old lover, Florence Lavigny. It wasn't until Harold was out of the running that Hengist's illegitimate daughter with Florence Lavigny, Arissa, popped up and pointed out that as she was older than Aisling, she was now first in line to the throne. Much more recently, of course, Hadrian Jansen, now calling himself Hadrian Duval, has also popped up to say he has even more right to the throne than Arissa. But it was Arissa who claimed the title when Hadrian was murdered by a henchman of Senator Denton Petreius in 3301. Had Hengist not disowned him, Harold would have been Emperor, and following his murder, Aisling, as his only identifiable progeny, would this week have become the new Emperor. It's bad enough losing your father, but losing the Empire as well is just too bad. The neo-Marlinist Republican terrorists who killed Harold seem to have been going for the softer targets in the Duval dynasty, leading to speculation in some quarters that they might actually be working for the Emperor herself, tidying up some of the more troublesome elements of the extended Duval family. It wasn't Thargoids, say Imperial spooks. The Imperial Internal Security Service is insisting that the 4 Imperial stations damaged last Thursday by what had all the hallmarks of Thargoid weapons were in fact attacked by a provincial terrorist group demanding an end to Imperial rule. The Neo-Marlinists take their name from Marlin Duval, who declared Achinars independent from the Federation in 2292. Marlin died in an apparent shuttle accident 4 years later and was succeeded by her brother Hansen, who replaced Marlin's republic with an empire, declaring himself the first emperor. Marlinists, who come primarily from the outer fringes of Empire space, want to return to the original republican values of Achinar. The Republic lasted 4 years, while the Empire has lasted more than 1,000 years, so perhaps the Neo-Marlinist Liberation Army, which is the terrorist wing of the Marlinist movement, are getting a bit impatient. The IISS says it has reason to believe the NMLA has managed to procure Thargoid weapon technology, although it seems likely that the weapons in use were relatively primitive. The 4 damaged stations include Mackenzie Relay, the transit point for Princess Aisling Duval when she ventures out from her opulent palace on the planet of Emerald, the very station Prince Harold would normally have passed through when visiting his daughter. It is not yet clear whether the NMLA has specifically targeted Princess Aisling's branch of the family. Brewing up some upgrades. Brewer Corporation, manufacturer of starports and fleet carriers, plans to create a few more starports to make things easier for owners of its fleet carriers. Recognising that many refineries are outposts with limited docking options, Brewer has proposed upgrading some of these outposts to full-size starports to make the necessary chore of tritium transfer that little bit easier. Details are limited at this stage, but Pilots Federation members are hopeful they may be invited to procure materials for the upgrades. Who murdered Jasmina Halsey? On the morning of 26th of May 3301, dignitaries from the Saga system expressed their annoyance that Federal President Jasmina Halsey had failed to turn up at a scheduled meeting. They were initially told that Halsey had decided to make an unplanned detour. At 3 p.m. that day, Acting President Felicia Winters made an emergency broadcast to the nation. Starship One, the President's official vessel, had gone missing. It was later confirmed that it had disintegrated while in hyperspace, with little chance of any survivors. Only a week later, the Federal Navy issued a report saying that the loss of Starship One was due to an entirely accidental disintegration of the frameshift drive, and that there was absolutely no point in looking for suspicious circumstances. That same day, 2nd of June 3301, President Halsey was elected to replace Jasmina Halsey as Federal President. Somewhat inexplicably, in January 3302, President Hudson ordered a search for the wreckage of Starship One. This may have been motivated by another organisation, the Duartu Jetcoms plc, suddenly becoming interested in investigating the circumstances of the accident. The search eventually resulted in the recovery of ex-President Halsey's escape capsule. She was successfully revived, but her personality appeared to have changed radically. No longer the calculating, ruthless president, she now appeared to be a wide-eyed child of the universe. She pottered off to the Alliance and now advises Prime Minister Mahan on feng shui and dream catchers. Now, more than 5 years later, a second and possibly more rigorous inquiry, convened specifically to hear new testimony from several as-yet unnamed members of the Federal Navy, has concluded that the loss of Starship One was not, after all, a terrible accident, but that it was deliberately sabotaged. There can have been only one motive: clearing the path for President Hudson to become the new Federal President. The Federal Intelligence Agency has been informed. Arrests are said to be imminent. Malic explains orbiting SRV. Stunt pilot and scientist Commander Malic VR had to explain to his breakdown service why his SRV had become stuck in space following an incident on Friday. In his own words, Commander Malic jumped his SRV off a moon and got stuck in orbit. When asked to explain how this unfortunate stranding had come about, Commander Malic obliged with a diagram. The unfortunate commander has now been rescued, but officials are concerned that he may not necessarily have learned his lesson. And that's this week's Galnet News. Galnet News, we read the news so you don't have to.